You're being lied to by every glossy seed catalog sitting on your coffee table right now. They want you to fall in love with the trophy crops. You know the ones. Those massive, heirloom beefsteak tomatoes that look perfect in a photo but require more pampering than a newborn calf. We've been conditioned to think that a successful garden is measured by how many red spheres we can fit in a wicker basket. But if things actually go sideways, if the grocery store shelves stay empty for more than a week or the supply chain takes another nosedive, those tomatoes aren't going to save you. In fact, they might just be the reason you go hungry. I've spent over 20 years with my hands in the dirt, through record-breaking droughts and economic shifts that made most folks panic. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when the stakes are high, you don't plant for flavor alone. You plant for survival. Think about it this way. A medium tomato has about 22 calories. It's basically a bag of gourmet water. You could eat 10 of them, and you still wouldn't have enough energy to hoe a single row of soil. They're finicky, they're prone to blight, and if you forget to water them for 2 days in July, they give up the ghost. We're at a point where we can't afford to waste our limited energy, or our limited garden space, on hobby vegetables. We need crops that work as hard as we do. We need the heavy hitters that provide actual fuel, store for months without fancy equipment, and can handle a little neglect. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, but Porter, what's a summer salad without a tomato? Stick with me here, because I'm not saying you can't have a few for fun. I'm saying if you're serious about smart senior secrets and securing your food future, your priority list needs a massive overhaul. The math just doesn't add up for the tomato. But it gets even crazier when you look at the survival efficiency scale. To actually survive, you need calories, carbohydrates, and storage stability. You need crops that you can harvest in October and still be eating in March without needing a freezer that's dependent on a power grid. Here's the secret the big seed companies don't lead with. The real survival crops aren't the ones that look the prettiest on Instagram. They're the ones that stay hidden underground or develop a skin so tough you need a hacksaw to get into them. So, before you go out and buy another 12-pack of celebrity starts, we need to talk about the 5 heavyweights that actually deserve that real estate in your backyard. Let's start with the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. If I could only plant one thing to keep my family alive, this would be it. No questions asked. I'm talking about the potato. Now, don't roll your eyes. I'm not talking about those flavorless bags of russets you buy for $3 at the supermarket. I'm talking about high-yield, nutrient-dense varieties that act like a caloric insurance policy buried right under your feet. One medium potato has about 160 calories. That's nearly 8 times the energy of a tomato. But the real magic is in the effort-to-output ratio. In a survival scenario, your energy is your most precious resource. You can't be out there spending 4 hours a day pruning suckers and spraying organic pesticides. You put a potato in the ground, you hill it up a couple of times, and it basically does the rest of the work in the dark. It's a set-it-and-forget-it calorie factory. Plus, if you're dealing with limited mobility or just don't want to spend your golden years hunched over a garden bed, potatoes are incredibly forgiving. You can grow them in buckets, in grow bags, or even in a pile of straw. But here is where most people mess up, and this is a mistake that could cost you an entire season's worth of food. They plant grocery store potatoes. Never do that. Most of those are treated with sprout inhibitors, so they stay pretty on the shelf. You want certified seed potatoes. Why? Because in a survival situation, a crop failure isn't just a bummer, it's a disaster. Seed potatoes are screened for diseases that can live in your soil for a decade. If you're going to put the work in, you want to guarantee a return on that investment. And let's talk about this storage factor, because this is where the tomato really fails the test. A tomato lasts a week on the counter. A properly cured potato? It'll sit in a cool, dark corner of your basement for 6 months and still be ready for the frying pan. No canning jars, no pressure cookers, and no electricity required. If you're starting to see why your current garden plan might be a bit fragile, hit that like button so I know you're with me. It's time we stop gardening for the aesthetics and start gardening for the security. But as great as the potato is, it has one major weakness. If a specific pest or a very specific type of blight hits, think Irish potato famine levels of trouble. You need a backup. You never put all your eggs in one basket, and you never put all your carbs in one trench. That leads us to our second survival essential, the sweet potato. If the white potato is the king of the garden, the sweet potato is the queen, and she's a whole lot tougher than her husband when the mercury starts to climb. See, most of our traditional survival crops like potatoes and peas start to wither and moan the second a southern heat wave hits. But sweet potatoes? They thrive in the kind of humidity that makes us stay inside with the AC cranked up. But here's the real secret that most prepper channels miss entirely. With sweet potatoes, you aren't just growing a root. You're growing a two-for-one deal. While you're waiting for those tubers to fatten up underground, the leaves and the young vines are 100% edible. They're packed with protein, vitamin A, and vitamin C. In a real deal survival scenario, you can't wait 4 months for a harvest to get some nutrition. You can be harvesting those greens all summer long to bulk up your stews or stir fries, and the plant will just keep on pumping them out. It's like having a salad bar that produces a hidden treasure chest of carbs at the end of the season. Now, I know what you're thinking. Porter, I don't have the back for digging deep trenches every year. That's the beauty of it. You don't need to. You can grow these in slips, which are just sprouts from a mother potato, and they'll trail all over the yard. They act as a living mulch, shading the soil and keeping the moisture in. But it gets even better. While the sweet potato is busy conquering the ground, you need something that can stand up to the elements and protect itself without you having to baby it. You need a crop that comes with its own built-in biological armor. I'm talking about winter squash. Now, don't confuse these with those watery summer zucchinis that turn into mush if you look at them sideways. I'm talking about the heavy hitters like butternut, Hubbard, or the Kashaw heirloom. These things are the tanks of the vegetable world. They develop a skin so thick and woody that pests have a hard time getting in, and more importantly, moisture can't get out. Imagine it's February. There's a foot of snow on the ground. The grocery store is a madhouse, and you haven't been able to get fresh produce in weeks. You walk over to a shelf in your garage or a cool closet, and there sits a butternut squash that you harvested back in October. You cut it open, and it's just as bright, orange, and nutrient-dense as the day it came off the vine. That's not just gardening. That's a grocery store you own and control. Here's the pro tip most folks ignore: the seeds. In a survival situation, fat and protein are the hardest things to come by. Most people scoop out the guts of a squash and throw them in the compost. That is a massive mistake. Those seeds are survival gold. Roast them up, and you've got a high-protein, high-zinc snack that keeps your energy levels stable when you're working hard. Now, you might be asking, how am I supposed to grow all this if I only have a small backyard or a suburban lot? That brings us to the most misunderstood crop in American history. It's a crop that literally built civilizations, but we've been told it's too difficult for the home gardener. The truth is, it's actually one of the easiest ways to get massive amounts of calories in a tiny space, if you know the old world trick to harvesting it. I'm talking about grain corn. Now, wait a second. Wipe that image of buttery corn on the cob off your mind. Sweet corn is a treat, but in a survival garden, it's a waste of space. It's high in sugar, low in staying power, and it spoils in 48 hours. If you want to actually feed your family when the trucks stop running, you need flint or dent corn. This is the stuff that stays on the stalk until it's rattling like a dry bone in the wind. Why? Because once you grind that corn into meal, you have the base for every meal you need. Grits, cornbread, tortillas, porridge. This is the fuel that built the Americas. It's the ultimate pantry crop. You can store whole kernels in a 5-gallon bucket with a gamma lid, and they'll be perfectly edible 5, 10, even 15 years from now. Try doing that with a tomato. But corn is a heavy feeder. It's a hungry crop that sucks the life right out of your soil. If you plant it alone, year after year, your garden will turn into a dust bowl. That leads us to the final piece of the survival puzzle. This is the crop that doesn't just feed you, it feeds the ground itself. It's the humble pole bean. Specifically, you want dry beans. Think pintos, black beans, or kidney beans. These are the unsung heroes of the homestead. While your tomatoes are busy catching every fungus known to man, beans are hard at work pulling nitrogen out of the air and pumping it back into the soil through their roots. They're literally creating free fertilizer while they grow. And from a nutritional standpoint, beans are the missing link. You can't survive on starch alone. You need protein to keep your muscles moving and your brain sharp. A handful of dry beans and a scoop of that cornmeal we just talked about, that's a complete protein. It's the exact same nutritional profile as a steak, but it costs pennies to grow and requires zero refrigeration. But here's the kicker that brings this whole Survival 5 strategy together. When you plant these 5 potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, corn, and beans, you aren't just planting a garden. You're building an ecosystem. The corn provides a ladder for the beans to climb. The beans feed the corn. The squash and sweet potato vines sprawl across the ground, acting as a living mulch that chokes out weeds and keeps the soil cool and moist. It's a self-sustaining calorie machine. So, look at your garden plan for this year. Is it a hobby, or is it a lifeline? I love a good BLT as much as the next guy, but when I look out at my rows, I want to see security. I want to know that no matter what happens with the economy, the power grid, or the local supermarket, my smart senior family is going to be just fine. Get those survival crops in the ground now, while you still have the luxury of choice. Because the best time to plant a survival garden was 20 years ago. The second best time? That's today.